Thank you. As a friend said, that Stephen Murney's case potentially is, although I don't want to engage in the cause célèbre, but it potentially is one of the worst cases, not just because of the implications for Stephen, which are quite high, but also for the wider implications for the people in this room and virtually all those outside of it as well. Stephen Murney is a member of Eirigi, as am I. He's a close friend and comrade of mine. And in the Newry area, he also acted as spokesperson and PRO for the party. Stephen Murney was, and remains so even from McCusker, very critical of the state's response to any type of political dissent, whether it be from a Republican perspective or trade unions or any other socio-economic area. For this reason, Stephen was subject to extensive special treatment from the PSNI in the Newry area. It's worth noting that Stephen had submitted a letter which appeared in print in his local press, where he was highly critical of the PSNI early dawn raids, which were extremely traumatic to the people who were suffering them, particularly the young children of the households. Virtually all those people were not political activists, and a lot of these raids were designed to facilitate intervention from A5 to have neighbours spying upon neighbours. With less than 24 hours after that appeared in print, what had been described by Stephen in the media was to befall upon himself as well. Less than 24 hours after that letter appeared, his own front door was smashed in. Stephen Murney was hauled off by the PSNI, leaving a very traumatised young family behind him, who didn't know where he was going or why he was being taken away. During the raid on Stephen's home, the PSNI seized a computer, they seized a band uniform, and political literature. For those who aren't aware of Eirigi, Eirigi is a legal, transparent, and democratic political party, and is registered as such within both the 6 and 26 counties. Stephen was brought to court. 3 charges were laid against him: collecting information which may have been used to terrorists, distributing information which may be of use to terrorists, and possessing items which could be used for terrorist purposes. In relation to the first charge, the PSNI officer said that Stephen had photographed PSNI personnel at a political protest in June 2012. He also stated that when approached at the time by the PSNI, Stephen had stopped taking the images, and he also conceded that they had not attempted to caution or arrest Stephen at the time, nor sought to confiscate or examine his camera phone, nor demand images be deleted. When this was questioned by the judge as to why none of this was happening, why this incident took place in June, that Stephen now found himself in front of court in November, they said that they weren't aware of who Stephen was, that they were unsure of his identity at the time. When presented with a stack this high of stop and search forms throughout that period, where some of the very people given evidence against him in court were the people who carried out these stop and searches, they were silent. The second charge of PSNI said Stephen later published the photographs of the protest and the PSNI presence on his Facebook page. They also said the third charge related items of clothing, which was the band uniform, political literature, including leaflets, posters and stencils, seized from Stephen's home. The solicitor acting on Stephen's behalf pointed out that the photographs had not only been taken quite openly, but they had been shared quite openly as well. A number of the images that were referred to in court were in fact historical images, some of them going back 100 years. The solicitor also pointed out that the items that the PSNI alleged could be used for terrorist purposes consisted of band uniforms, of which Stephen was once a member, party political leaflets, and images freely available on the internet. They also stated that the toy guns, which is what they were Stephen's sons. Yep. The second hearing, many references were given on Stephen's behalf. The judge was in fact quite critical of the bail hearings of the PSNI's case, but for anybody who thought or may think the judge was going to come to the rescue, he wasn't, and you're going to find out why. The conditions that were levelled at Stephen for bail were extremely draconian, and they include some of these: banning Stephen from living at home with his wife and family, banning Stephen from living or entering Newry, where his family and all his friends live, even if it was for medical appointments, banning Stephen from attending any meetings or events of a political nature, banning Stephen from having possession of any electronic emitting devices, cameras or phones. When it was pointed out that these draconian conditions could prevent Stephen from going to hospital, for example, he was told that he could go to hospital if he was suffering an emergency, he had to phone the PSNI in advance of him going there, and if they found out he was using a mobile phone to do that, then he'd find himself back in prison. He also had to reside in an address at least 5 miles from Newry, report daily to a PSNI barracks, which was a 25-mile round trip with no direct public transport links. When it was pointed out that Stephen nor his wife nor his immediate family drive, he was told to get a bike and engage in a 25-mile round trip. He also had to accept a daily curfew from 7 p.m. in the evening until 10 a.m. in the morning and wear an electronic tag. Stephen remains in prison because he refuses to be further humiliated by this system. He is not prepared to be criminalised by the system for engaging in what can only be acknowledged by, I think, everybody in this room as legitimate political activity. And furthermore, Stephen maintains that he is innocent of all the charges being placed before him. And if I could just make one point, which is significant to some of the people in this room. In January 2013, nationalist members of the Newry and Mourne Policing and Community Safety Partnership, of which Stephen, would be fair to say, would not be a great fan, and I think the feeling would be mutual, they condemned the ongoing detention of Stephen. Members of that partnership described his imprisonment as akin to short-term internment on the basis of very dubious charges. And that is what we're looking at here, folks. Stephen is not special. He is paying a high price for very open political activities, but the threshold of these charges is so low that everybody in this room, I guarantee, will be captured by at least one, if not all of them, and more. So I just ask people, if anybody is interested in the case of Stephen, I do have fact sheets available so people can get more acquainted with the case, and we would very much welcome working with anybody who'd be willing to raise the case. Thank you very much.